Hey, welcome into the Mile High Baseball Podcast. I am Jake Shapiro. A lot of basketball, a lot of baseball this time of year. The two Bs, my favorite Bs probably in life. The Killer Bees, the Houston Astros. Not up there. I really liked when the Chicago White Sox beat them in the World Series, but a lot of Bs right now. Bees are on my mind, and of course they should be on your mind because it's springtime and they're pollinating your gardens. I don't know if you guys planted. I already planted because the rule in Colorado is do it after Mother's Day. But I'm currently sitting here in our studio here at Denver Sports 104.3 The Fan. And I'm very concerned for the flowers that I planted. That's what's on my mind, as well as the Denver Nuggets and Colorado Rockies. But we are talking about the Colorado Rockies, and I love it when I just went to a homestand because I get to go in there, catch up with all the guys, see where they're at, see what they're feeling, their hopes, their dreams, their nightmares, as my boy Thomas Harding sometimes says. And the Rockies are playing good ball right now. They did lose 2 to Philadelphia. Then they had the Bryce Harper, Jake Bird game. We'll get into it a little bit, but this is going to be a quick podcast, so I'm going to try and get into a lot here. Overall, the Rockies are playing pretty good baseball. I'm liking contributions they're getting across the board. I talked about Doyle last podcast. We wrote about it on DenverSports.com. Like, this guy could be like legitimately part of the Rockies' future in center field and end up being a really good player. He had a fantastic homestand as the Rockies took 2 of 3 from Cincinnati on the back half. Now they're out on the road at Texas for 3. Then they come home, have Miami in the New York Mets. So where I'm at with this team is they're playing better than they should be, particularly because they had all these injuries pop up and their rotation is a mess. I don't know that they're going to be able to sustain this level of play. And, you know, this is probably their best stretch of ball over the course of the season. They've already won 10 games in May. So it's going to catch up to them. It really is. But it's been fun to have them have a little spurt. And it's been fun to see some new faces. Today, when this podcast airs, Friday afternoon, Friday evening, we're going to see the debut of Carl Kaufman, who is going to come up and take the place of Riley Pint, who debuted. I guess I'll start on Pint. Pint made his debut in Wednesday's game for 4th overall pick in his draft. Third of an inning, was rough, was erratic. Couldn't locate his fastball. That's been the story of him. Guy who threw 102 at 18 years old, but has never really been able to locate, right? And the whole story of him has been erratic. But I just go back to it because if the Rockies had the number 4 overall pick in any other draft, they're probably a serious contributor to this team. But that draft class was so weak. Pete Alonso was the best pick, and he went in the 2nd round. Will Smith was a good pick for the Dodgers. He went in the compensation picks, compensatory, whatever they want to call it. So there was nobody in the top 20 who was like really good player. And funny enough, the second batter Riley Pint faced yesterday, and he ended up walking, was Nick Senzel, who went 2 picks above him to the Cincinnati Reds. So, yeah, it was kind of what I expected with Riley Pint, and I don't know that he'll ever get back up to the majors. You hope he can find a way to develop as a reliever. He's still relatively young because he was drafted out of high school. And maybe you get something, but it's always funny when you're sending down a guy who had like a 7.78 ERA in AAA Albuquerque to send up the guy, call up the guy who has a 7.41 ERA in AAA Albuquerque. So I'm not expecting Kaufman, who was a 2nd round pick in 2019 of the Rockies, to come up and be like, oh, this is the guy who's going to anchor the rotation. But when you already have Senzatello, Marquez, Davis all down, as well as, you know, Feltner has the head injury, and you've already DFA'd Block and you've DFA'd Urania, you're really looking for answers in your rotation. So this is why I think it's going to start to catch up to the Rockies. He'll make his debut this evening, Friday. Let's see what he's got. That should be an interesting part of the discussion. But again, I've really loved what I've seen from Brenton Doyle lately. I think that's been honestly the most exciting part of this Rockies little streak here, as he's debuted and just been fantastic. Now it's about like, what is he at the big league level? And we might not have that answer for a year or two. But so far, so good. And you know the defense will translate. You don't know if it's going to stay up at the plate. You don't know if the power numbers are real. But again, so far, so good. The bullpen, I think, has been really good in this stretch. And that's why I'm a little worried for like the come down of this team. Because all those starting guys are out, you're going to tax the bullpen with more innings, and eventually it's just going to get to them. So Suter, Hand, Bird, Lawrence, they've all been great. Pierce Johnson's been really good. can that continue when they start getting taxed for more innings? The Bird Harper thing, absolutely hilarious. Bryce Harper, so upset that he couldn't sweep the Rockies, so upset that he's losing to the Rockies, that he says, in not so pretty words and not exactly how I'm saying it, but you're a joke of an organization, you are all losers, as he gets kicked out of the game and upset by Jake Bird. That is hilarious. Bryce Harper is also right. Bryce Harper probably shouldn't be saying that, but very funny. And I just enjoyed it. I'm not a big Bryce Harper guy. It goes back to actually a moment he had here in Colorado where he got kicked out of a game that was in the semifinal game of the Junior College World Series in Grand Junction, wasn't able to be part of the team for the final game, and you end up in a situation where his JUCO basically got screwed out of the ability to win a championship because he was the best team. So he was on the best team. So I've always thought he was a little bit selfish. And, it was funny to see him get to the World Series last year and all that. Elias Diaz has been the best player on the Rockies, and I had to take yesterday on Twitter. I don't know that we've ever in baseball history had a guy go from being by far and away the worst player in the National League or the worst player in his own league to being an all-star year over year. And because CJ Cron's now on the DL and no one else is really performing well in the Rockies, I mean, at this point, Brenton Doyle might actually be their second best player, even though he's only played half the games this season. Elias Diaz is probably going to be the Rockies representative at the All-Star game. And that's just an amazing turnaround. So that's a really good story with the Rockies. And please, 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 Colorado, you found something here. Move on from him at the deadline. You don't expect this to be like your long-term catcher of the future. I know you've already signed him to a contract, but it would be smart to sell high on Elias Diaz. Tovar continues to just play decently well. Bryant, you're starting to maybe see some signs that he's got something in the tank, and that's exciting. But because of the short road trip only to Texas, the Rockies are right back here. We'll be talking about them from Coors Field. I'll be catching up with all the guys next week on the Mile High Baseball podcast with Jake Shapiro. Appreciate you tuning in. Sorry for the short episode, but we've got a lot going on here at denversports.com. Make sure you check it all out on our website.